He's the European Affairs correspondent at the Jerusalem Post, also fellow for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and he's a very good friend live from Germany, Ben Weinthal. Good morning, Ben. How are you, pal?
Good morning, Sid. Glad to be on your show.
Glad to have you. Thanks again for tweeting this morning. It does give me a little bit of a thrill. I'm not going to lie to you. When you tweet you're coming on with the great Sid Rosenberg, that means a lot to me, Ben. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's when the dopey sports guys do it, that's one thing. But when a really, really smart guy like you does it, it's like, oh, my God. And you've been great with us. So thank you. Let's start with this before we get to the Iran stuff. Rough weekend, right? We saw in Tunisia. That was really horrible. The gunman on the beach and just spraying the beach and the hotel with bullets and murdering innocent beachgoers that day. Kuwait had an attack as well. 30 people died there. France, the beheading of that gentleman at the plant. And London was lucky. They thwarted an attempt. So a very bloody weekend, and it could have been worse last weekend. What do you think that what means moving forward, especially with July 4th coming up here in the United States?
Well, I think the United States and other Western countries are going to have to be on their toes and be very vigilant because the Islamic State spokesman called for attacks during this period of Ramadan, Muslim holy festival for the next month. And the Islamic State has made it explicitly clear that they're encouraging their cells and their supporters in the West to mount terrorist attacks.
See, I always thought Ramadan, because, again, I admit I'm just learning about a lot of stuff for the last couple of years. I always thought Ramadan was kind of like the Sabbath, where you would kind of, pull back on certain things, including violence and what you eat and all that type of thing. But you're telling me during this religious period, this is a time where they're actually encouraging murder?
Well, the Islamic State is which of course is a radical, violent interpretation of Sunni Islam, and it's they're trying to create a mass movement across the world right now, and they're not putting any restrictions on it in terms of Muslim holidays.
We know that the Jewish people are always at risk, and we'll talk about Iran and the nuclear talks here. You heard all those folks in Israel talking about that, Ben. And you've been good on the show talking about that before, attacks against the Jews in France, all over the world. What about Germany? You live in Berlin. What is it like there in terms of an ISIS presence and the daily, I don't want to use the word fear, but the apprehension in Germany? What's it like there?
Well, it's an interesting question. I just did a story for Fox News last week, foxnews.com, about German women and other European women who are traveling to the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, young women who are going there to marry Islamists and also to serve in an all-women's brigade. So you have right now over 100 German women who have traveled to those war theaters, including from a total of over 700 Germans. So Germany has, to put it simply, a massive Islamic State problem.
Wow, I'm surprised to hear that. I did not think that was going to be. I see that all the time. The New York Times ran a story yesterday, Ben. They focused on one lady and her journey to where she eventually also became part of ISIS. I don't see what they're offering. It's not like, hey, you come here and you're going to have a big house and a lot of money. And basically what it is, you come here, you're going to end up with some soldier that you don't really want. We're going to make sure he has you. So you're going to be forced into sex. You're probably going to have to get a gun and maybe even fight at some point. I understand they think they're pretty good with the social media stuff, but what the hell are they offering that young girls from all over the world, including the United States, are running over there?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, a number of people who've studied radicalization suggest that it's the sort of this excitement that jolts you out of your sort of ordinary existence. You're part of a larger mission, however perverted and twisted that mission is. Many, I think, young girls and women who are attracted to this type of movement view their lives as sort of an empty social existence, and they want to inject, as I mentioned, a certain thrill level. One woman who actually just defected from the Islamic State, a 23-year-old Syrian who I quoted in my article right now, who's on the border of Syria and Turkey, actually, in Gaziantep, urged women, girls in the West not to come to the Islamic State. They have no idea what it's about. It's really about stoning women, slavery, punishment, and pure barbaric violence.
Yeah, and throwing gay people off the roof. I've seen they hear the story about what happened here in America with the Supreme Court a couple of days ago, as if they need more reasons to want to kill us. I mean, oh my God. So one more thing about Germany specifically. I know they're part of the P5+1, obviously, along with the United States and Britain and France and Russia, China, in terms of getting the group that got together in terms of making this deal with Iran. Does Germany, for the most part, agree with the U.S.? I know they're part of the same group. They have to come to a common mind at the very end of this. But do they usually agree with the U.S. in terms of this deal with Iran?
Well, I just wrote an analysis on the weekend for the Jerusalem Post entitled "Why Germany's the Weakest Western Link in the Iran Negotiations." And my point was Germany has courted Iranian businesses. It's been the largest trade partner of Iran for many years, even going back before the sanctions. The trade estimate figures here would be Germany would benefit probably from a $12 billion a year trade deals. So, and Germany's foreign minister has also been very deferential in the past to certain dictators like Putin. John McCain, Republican senator, actually said he's part of the Neville Chamberlain school of thought, that he's too willing to make concessions. Now, when you contrast Germany with France, you see big differences. France called the negotiations in 2013 with Iran a fool's game and threw a wrench in the process to stop them because they saw the U.S. and Germany agreeing to too many concessions.
And that's what I've been hearing even now, is that, it kind of been put on the back burner of this thing, which is good, I guess, for John Kerry and Barack Obama, because Obama had a great week here last week, and this may be the first thing he doesn't get done after going 3-0 last week. But I'm hearing that still U.S. offering a lot of concessions to try to get this deal done as soon as possible. Is that true?
It is. The U.S. has gone from wanting to secure a deal or a good deal to wanting to secure a satisfactory deal, and now simply wanting to secure a bad deal. And it involves a lot of concessionary bargaining. The deal, for the most part, allows Iran to go nuclear after 10 years. Nice. There's all sorts of deficiencies in terms of intrusive inspections, whether the Americans and the International Atomic Energy Agency will be able to really inspect those hidden nuclear facilities as well as the military facilities. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has written on Twitter he's opposed to inspections. And then there's a question of whether there'll actually be snapback sanctions. That is when Iran cheats. And the real problem here, Sid, is Iran cheats incrementally. So there may not be a clear-cut violation right away, but over time they make these small violations that add up, and those violations could eventually mean that Iran obtains a nuclear weapon within a short period of time.
I mean, that's the issue here is seemingly, Ben, what's at stake. I understand, people cheat in baseball too, and maybe, like you said, at times they go a year without doing steroids and they do it for a little bit, but you're talking about here about they cheat just a little, and in the end they may get them a dangerous country, a hateful country, a nuclear weapon. That's kind of a big deal.
It is, and I think you'd mentioned the gay marriage in the United States last week. That was a huge news story. And what I think is interesting about the Iran right now is one litmus test for measuring Iran's progress is to re-enter the civilized world is how they've dealt with minorities. 2 State Department reports have come out recently, last week on human rights and one recently on terrorism. Iran's regime has not changed one bit. In fact, it's gotten significantly worse under an alleged moderate regime from Hassan Rouhani. Yeah. That means Iran's still stoning gays. They're still arresting women who don't wear a headscarf. Yeah. They're still imprisoning journalists. And let's not forget, 4 Americans are currently being held in Iran.
Hostages, I understand that. So look, I think a lot of Americans know today's a deadline. It's not going to happen today. Then Chuck Todd told me there's another soft deadline for July the 7th. I'm not even sure when this thing is going to happen. But just at the simplest of things here, explain, Ben, to the American audience that's listening, my audience right now, that knows about this deal but doesn't know the intricacies, what exactly do we have to gain other than Obama, who wants to do stuff, right? I'm the guy, when gay marriage, I did that. He wants to do stuff. He wants to make sure people remember his presidency. I get that. He's an egotistical maniac. But outside of that, what do we have to gain here?
Well, if the U.S. and its partners reach a solid deal with Iran, that means there won't be a nuclear-armed regime in Tehran, and that's a significant accomplishment. But the problem with this deal is Obama already gave away the store from the outset because he allowed Iran to enrich uranium.
Right.
And that was once a point of 6 UN resolutions stating in crystal clear terms that Iran does not have a right to enrich uranium. And he gave that away at the front end of the negotiation. Now, Sid, you're right. Obama is intensely preoccupied with his legacy. He's failed miserably in terms of his foreign policy right now. Look at the Middle East. Look at the rise of the Islamic State because Obama pulled out of Iraq. In fact, one could argue, and I think it's a solid argument that Iran has helped create the Islamic State because of this vacuum in the Middle East, because the U.S. and other countries have pulled out and have not supported our allies in the region. You have Iran moving in, and that's helped create the Islamic State.
Critics say that one of the issues here, too, is that while Obama, his intentions are to make sure Iran does not make a nuclear bomb, right, that while he does that, in doing that, making a deal with Iran will, in fact, make it a much more dangerous Middle East because now every neighboring country, assuming that Iran will make a bomb, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they're going to have it, every neighboring country is upping the same exact thing right now. So in doing this deal, it backfires in that the whole Middle East gets nuclear ready. What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly. I mean, the Saudis right now are negotiating with France and also Pakistan about nuclear energy. If I was in the kingdom right now in Saudi Arabia watching these Iran negotiations, I would be working overtime to develop a nuclear weapons program. And the same could be said for countries like Egypt, Bahrain, the UAE. All the Gulf monarchies are filled with anxiety about what's happening, and the next logical step would be for them to develop nuclear weapons. So Obama actually accomplished the exact opposite of what he wanted to do.
Right, exactly. Israel. People say, well, listen, they've been beat up so much over there and bombed and beaten up that we get it that, maybe they're a little intense, maybe a little drama going on in Israel that, Iran's not going to drop the nuclear bomb on Israel. Let me ask you this, Ben, because you write for the Jerusalem Post. If you were living in Tel Aviv and not in Berlin, would you be nervous?
Yes. I think, the voices that we heard at the outset of this program were right on the money. There's intense nervousness and concern about what Obama's doing during these talks for Israelis. And you see that across the political spectrum in Israel, from the left to the right. There are not millimeters of difference. Everyone is unified about the danger of an Iranian nuclear bomb. And if there was another prime minister in Israel who's from another party, Obama would face the same opposition. So it doesn't matter if it was Netanyahu or Herzog from the Labor Party. There is that type of unity in opposition to this nuclear weapons program in Iran, as well as this very deeply flawed negotiation.
So two things then on the way out, Ben. Today is June 30th. Today's the deadline. It's not getting done today. What do you think? Right. What do you think is a realistic date? Good deal, which it won't be. Okay deal, which it won't be. Miserably horrible concession-filled dead deal, which it will be. What is the date for that? You think?
Well, you really summed it up well there, Sid, in terms of where this is going. July 9th is sort of the deadline because if the U.S. moves beyond, if John Kerry moves beyond the 9th, then Congress has 60 days to evaluate this deal and vote it down. If the deal is reached before July 9th, then Congress only has 30 days to evaluate the deal. So the U.S. administration, the Obama administration, wants to avoid the 60-day period because that gives Congress more time to examine all the concessions and deficiencies in this agreement. So July 9th is really the date.
And on the way out, Ben, and once again, I love you. I think you're great. You're a great writer. You're great on the air, too, and I thank you for coming on. It's a big deal for us. My son Gabriel is 6 years old. When he turns 16, will Iran have a nuclear bomb? No matter what this deal, will Iran have a nuclear bomb?
I think there's a very good chance. Even President Obama said in an interview with NPR that after this 10-year period, he used a different figure, but after the 10-year period, Iran could race to become a nuclear power because there won't be these types of hardcore restrictions in place that were part of this very elaborate, tough sanctions regime. So this whole nuclear negotiation does not bode well for this very young generation that you're talking about.
Oh, boy. Anyway, Ben is the European Affairs correspondent at the Jerusalem Post, fellow for Foundation for Defense and Democracies. I compel you, I'm serious. Go on Twitter, follow him. He's a great follow. All of his columns he puts on Twitter. Read his stuff in the Jerusalem Post. Ben, you're great. Thank you again for hopping on, and we'll keep talking, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sid.